a rematch that Hendo expected to materialize. It does here tonight. Shogun Rua, Dan Henderson, back together in the octagon.
Against James Tahuna in his last fight, Shogun used a lot of angles and footwork. He credited moving from Curitiba back to Sao Paulo to train with his old coaches to getting more technical and getting out of a brawling style. Already we see him fighting more flat-footed than we saw in the Tahuna fight. If you stand in front of Dan Henderson, his right hand will eventually find you.
And it did find Shogun on that first offering, albeit not with a ton behind it.
A big key for Dan Henderson is more variety in his striking. He cannot be so predictable and allow Shogun to time him. That played a big factor in the 5 takedowns for Shogun in the first fight.
And of course, for Dan Henderson, his last 4 fights in the UFC have all come against former champions as he continues to draw the elite at 43 years of age.
And he'd have it no other way. He only fights the best. And there's that big right hand, and Shogun does a nice job after throwing a punch, covering up immediately, not getting hit with a counter.
And you see the respect of the power by both men.
Brutal leg kicks delivered here from Shogun. No attempt to check those kicks or block them from Dan Henderson thus far.
Well, Dan Henderson certainly got off to a fast start the last time these two met in 2011. Trying to do the same here as he moves forward with the right hand. Body kick is there for Shogun Rua, who really seems rejuvenated on the heels of that aforementioned win over Tahuna last December.
Nice kick of his own from Dan Henderson. Dan Henderson said yesterday morning he's going to be a bit more cautious, lower volume of strikes in the earlier rounds, does not want to gas himself out like what happened in the first fight. He has a tremendous amount of respect for the toughness and endurance of Shogun Rua. You're seeing that already. More methodical pace from Dan Henderson.
Just amazing how much damage both guys absorbed back at UFC 139. And yet neither guy was willing to be finished.
It was incredible. It was like both men ripped their chest open so you could see just how big their heart was.
Yeah.
The reason that fight is so legendary, because everybody could sit back and admire these two men.
So Hendo starting to find the range a little bit here. Shogun very respectful of that power, keeping those mitts up.
The defensive boxing of Shogun already better than the first fight.
Yeah.
Where he immediately started taking big damage. And he's really letting loose with these leg kicks that could pay big dividends in the later rounds.
Well, a lot of folks forecasted a more deliberate pace to begin things here, and through 3 minutes, that is what we have. A little bit of a feeling out process. Hendo thought briefly about the takedown.
Hendo had a lot of success in the first fight with his right uppercut. Once he got his range, he landed it continuously against Shogun. As Shogun came in, he dipped and ripped with that right uppercut. We'll see if he finds it tonight. You know, Dan has that awkward hunched over stance that can sometimes leave you open to a right high kick if Shogun can wrap it around the left shoulder of Dan Henderson. He has the flexibility and the speed capable of doing that. We'll see if he looks to it later in the fight.
Shogun landing a knee to the body there as we approach the 1 minute mark in the first of a possible 5 rounds.
No surprise after their first war that both men have a tremendous amount of respect for each other here in round 1. Another vicious leg kick landed by Shogun.
Yeah, continuing to chop away on that lead left leg of Dan Henderson.
Oh, huge left hook landed. Shogun appears to be rocked.
Yeah, that one dropped Shogun. He recovered quickly, but Hendo smelling blood.
Oh!
Down goes Hendo now. And now Shogun appears to have Hendo on the ropes.
Dan's defending. He's starting to get up. I don't know if he looks very wobbly. He's walking on jello. He's grabbing the cage.
And Shogun smart enough to work him back to the canvas.
15 seconds, Dan intelligently grabbing hold. He's got to cover up here. Herb Dean's going to stop this fight.
Oh, Dan Henderson in trouble here, looking to survive. to see a second round.
Wow, as advertised.
Shogun trying to posture up. Herb Dean, I believe, has waved things off.
Here's the barrage that Henderson used to rock Shogun, but then he countered with a combination of his own, and Dan Henderson was hurt bad. His corner saying now they want him to wrestle. You've been here before, now wrestle, and you must back him up. Already you see Dan Henderson taking steps back and a stiff jab from Shogun Rua.
And once again, Shogun touching Hendo up top.
Incredible awareness by Shogun, who has rocked himself, and we've seen it so many times. Guys look to finish and they get hurt themselves, and another vicious leg kick.
And you wonder at this point if Dan Henderson is fully recovered as he eats another one behind the ear. But Hendo able to return fire.
Those leg kicks are gonna limit Dan's ability to execute proper takedowns. That left thigh is gonna fill up with blood right now and become dead soon if he doesn't start checking some of those leg kicks.
So certainly a much more calculated approach from Shogun Rua than we saw in the first meeting. Picking his spots effectively.
Well, and this clinch right here benefits Dan Henderson, who's getting more time to recover from the barrage in round one and the overhand right he was hit with a few seconds ago. Just by the stance of Dan Henderson, he leaves that left leg for the taking. We'll see if Shogun continues that attack.
Hendo able to land, and Shogun counters to the body.
We promised everybody at home a war, and they're seeing it. Again, there's a very poor takedown attempt from Dan Henderson. Single leg attempt here by Shogun. Not even close. But you gotta wonder if some of that's due to that left leg damage he's taken from the leg kicks of Shogun Rua.
And Hendo has become less reliant on the takedown in the latter stages of his MMA career. Shogun snapping off the jab. Oh! Huge uppercut lands flush for Shogun. Hendo's chin has been there throughout his 40-plus fight professional career.
Perfect timing and range by Shogun as he threw that uppercut. Surprised he's not posturing up, trying to finish Dan Henderson right now. He's obviously learned his lesson from the last fight where they both hurt each other. Both were physically exhausted by the end of the fight. And as promised, Shogun is fighting much more technical than the first fight.
Certainly a much better start for Shogun Rua, who is down 3 rounds to none before staging that tremendous comeback. 2 minutes now to go in round 2.
And again, Dan Henderson using this time to recover right now, gather his wits. Shogun with very limited output here on top.
And Hendo keeping Shogun's body in tight to prevent some of that offense. Shogun trying to posture up for an elbow, but not a ton behind it.
Well, Henderson's keeping his guard closed, trying to tie Shogun up and get the referee to stand them back up. Barring a miracle here, this could put Henderson down 2 rounds to none right now.
Little exhale there from Shogun, who seems content to work out of Dan Henderson's guard.
Shogun fighting very smart here, but surprised that he allowed Dan Henderson to recover after that huge uppercut.
And there is the stand-up now from Herb Dean.
At no time did Shogun really try to pass the guard there. Wasn't landing significant strikes. Good stand-up there from Herb Dean.
And again, hard to quantify what kind of factor the heat and humidity is, but certainly cannot dismiss it as a factor in what is scheduled for 5 rounds.
Shogun doing a very nice job with his jab, keeping Dan Henderson at his range. Both the jab and the leg kick have really set up all of Shogun's striking attacks thus far.
And really, as soon as Hendo tries to wind up on that right hand, Shogun is backing up with immediacy.
Here's another look at that beautiful uppercut that drops Dan Henderson. Henderson getting caught looking, just sitting back and waiting to land that one big right hand, and he eats a big uppercut.
And in Dan Henderson's corner, the message was that they believe that left hand of Shogun is dropping. If he can feint with the jab and throw that right hand over the top, they believe it'll be there.
And you're right, he just threw a jab, the left hand returned to his thigh before it went back upstairs. And there Dan whiffs with that big right hand. Dan is at his best when he throws combinations, not just one punch at a time looking to counter. When Dan is moving forward, mixing up his punches and finishing with that big overhand right after closing the distance, that's where he gets most of his knockouts.
And again, Shogun doing a nice job defensively covering up, but that right hand appeared to find its home for Hendo.
Henderson did a nice job there backing Shogun up as he executed that combination, but again, Shogun goes right back to work with that jab.
Hendo continues to try to size up that right hand. Shogun able to slip that offering there.
It's still Shogun Rua dictating the pace and the tempo of this round right now with his jab and leg kicks. Henderson sitting back and waiting just a little too much. But again, as we all know, Henderson holds a big stick of dynamite in that right hand.
Shogun establishing that jab continuously. Oh! Huge right hand for Hendo! Shogun trying to recover. Dan Henderson has done it! Hendo has done it! Adding another chapter to his legendary career.
Just when you think it's over, the right hand of Dan Henderson explodes, and there you see the effects of it. Incredible timing on a right hook. Flush to the nose of Shogun as they break the clinch.
Well, those who tried to close the book on Dan Henderson's career were premature.
Ladies and gentlemen, referee Herb Dean has called a stop to this contest at 1 minute, 31 seconds of round number 3, declaring the winner by TKO, Dan Hendo Henderson.